One.
Wow, what's going on, guys? This is the Range Minded Podcast. This is Steve Zimmerman, and we have Nick Coffer with us. I almost said Mark because it was such an easy habit to say that Mark's here.
Well, we're going to have to remind people that this is going to be the first episode without Mark in it and without Mark leading the way. So we might have to fumble our way through some things like that start.
We might have to. I guess I should write it down. Nick's like little behind the scenes. Nick's like, "Hey, how do you want to do this intro?" And I'll just wing it. And then I winged it like a dead chicken.
So anyways, today we're going to kind of freeform. We're going to talk about the plans for the podcast moving forward, what we're going to do without our leader, Mark. And what do you think, Steve? Should we talk about some current events?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at the current events. One is it sucks and we should talk about it. The other is I'm sure our listeners have heard way more than they want to hear about current events and the state of the Second Amendment.
Well, I will say this. One thing that will probably happen now that Mark is not here leading the show is they might get us off on some rants that we don't get pulled back away from.
Yeah, Mark was pretty good at keeping the train on the rails, so to speak. I don't know. There's the first few episodes we did get deep in the weeds. We actually had somebody complain. You talk about stuff that doesn't matter too much. I can't help it. Some things we're just passionate about, and we just have to talk about it.
Well, and I think between me and you, Steve, I think that current events right now in the gun industry are something that me and you are extremely passionate about. The reason that we do this show, the reason that I originally agreed to come on this show was because of the platform to speak about our passion for the Second Amendment, for gun rights, for shooting sports, for concealed carry, all of those things. And right now, with what's going on, I think that me and you are both probably fighting on both fronts of the state to share our passions with other people during this time.
Yeah, and luckily we live in Idaho, which has a pretty solid Second Amendment foundation. At least I would think so. We have pretty good gun rights in Idaho compared to most other states. And there's some other legislation that we talked about with Senator Zito with House Bill 300 that we're going to try and delve in a little bit more in some later episodes. Oh, go ahead.
And speaking of that, so before coming on, me and Mark tried to reach out to Greg Pruitt, and I think I reached out to Senator Zito too again to see if we can get her to come back on the show. To see if we can get some of those people that are involved with HB 300 and the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance and Idaho Second Amendment rights. I'm going to talk more about that because I'm not really 100% certain what exactly HB 300 does for us. But I know if all of those four people are really pushing for it, that it's probably pretty important. And I remember talking about it when Senator Zito was on, and she went over some of it. But I'm not 100% clear on everything that it puts into place. So I'd love to get Greg Pruitt or one of them on here to talk about that. So if any of you listening are in their ear, tell them to check my emails.
Give them a jab a little bit because we tried to get a hold of Greg and I know he's a busy dude. Like,
absolutely.
The Second Amendment Alliance is not his primary job. He works hard in a lot of different aspects. So, and there is a video too that Second Amendment Alliance put out on a hearing or a town hall or whatever you want to call it about HB 300. That's definitely worth watching.
So it was the Q&A that they had at the Capitol building, and they went into some good questions. And I was telling you, one of my customers was there that day, and he came into the shop to pick up some holsters after that was over, and we had a pretty good discussion about it. And he was pretty confident in it, but it was still getting held up in the Senate.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll go through, but I'm sure there's some things that the Senate will want reworded or changed a little bit. Idaho has one of the best Second Amendment reputations of any of the states.
According to that video that I watched and you watched, they said top 5 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do too much research on that to find out who was above us. But I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, out of 50 states. But Also, for all of you guys listening, I would love for you guys to go over and actually sign up for the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. I get their emails every single day.
Yep.
Greg does a great job of informing us on what's going on. I've probably donated $250 in the last 2 weeks via emails because of the things that he's sent out and the lawsuits that they're forming and the things that they're doing. So
Yeah.
I would just say you don't have to donate, but I've been a member since they started. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I would highly encourage that you get involved, especially if you're in Idaho, because I always tell people the best place to get involved in politics is locally,
Yeah.
and that's a local advocate group that is fighting specifically for Idaho gun rights.
Yeah, and in any state that you're in, you need to hunt down your local Second Amendment group and become a member. Because Nick's right, like some of that stuff starts right there at the state level. That's really going to be the most important place that the fight's going to take place is the state level. This will be a states' rights issue, guaranteed. With what the feds are trying to push down our throats this go round.
And I definitely feel like going forward the next little while with the show, we're probably going to talk quite a bit about some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll still talk about how to buy a gun, what guns to buy, and training and the range and things like that. But I think that the focus right now on everybody's mind is, hey, what's going on in the federal government? What's going on with the president? Like, how is that going to affect us? And I'm going to do my best to stay informed on how that affects everyone going forward. I know Steve's already pretty good about that. We usually defer to him when we have
Well,
more
I
of
mean,
the legal side.
I am definitely not an attorney by
He
any
is not a
means.
lawyer, but he does pay attention to what's going on in the news.
I try to because and it's pisses my wife out. It drives her nuts because first thing I do in the morning is I'll turn on talking heads and listen to stuff that just pisses me off by the end of the day, pretty much. But I think it's important to stay informed. I do have a hard time. Some people say, hey, you got to listen to the other side of the argument to understand where they're coming from. But I've tried that, and that's why I'm bald and I had to shave my face, I guess. I don't know. No, it's hard to. And I don't disagree with that. But I think for sure, if you're going to have an argument, even on Facebook or whatever, with somebody about what's going on with the Second Amendment, you better damn well be getting your reading done and be able to back it up with facts and data. Because otherwise, opinions are just, everybody's got one.
I'll put this out there, Steve. I know that you have your facts in order, and I've seen you on Facebook get shut down by the left by saying that your facts aren't facts.
Yeah.
Because they refuse to.
Yeah, they don't study. Man, sidetrack. There's this one dude that was just trying to tell me, I can't remember what it was, and I think it was a Fox News feed or something. And so it was about the Second Amendment wasn't written for military type weaponry. And if you guys know your history, you're going to know that the privateers had way better ships and firepower than anything the United States military had at the time, because the military was so small and new. There really wasn't anything there.
With that said, wasn't the military around for a long time 30-06?
Yeah.
Because that's like the most primary hunting round now.
Yeah, well, you can,
and then before that, when the Second Amendment was written, I'm pretty sure they used these little round balls that went cross-platform to civilian and military government.
Most definitely. And if you really get bored, look up the puckle gun. When you say, "Oh, they didn't have military arms that could shoot multiple rounds or fire one after another," just look up the puckle gun if you get bored. Puckle, puckle. It's pretty awesome. It was really the grandfather to the Gatling gun. So
me and Steve have been having a discussion about doing a little more content social media wise for the show.
Yeah.
And I am going to make sure that the first thing that he does is post what the puckle gun is on Instagram and Facebook, because I don't know what that is.
And there's some other stuff too. I'll have to dig it up. But some of the state of the art stuff that is amazing, that some of the ingenuity that those guys had back in the late 1700s was pretty amazing. It wasn't just shoving a metal ball down a tube and lighting it and hoping it went off. They had some pretty amazing stuff.
Well, I just think that people get too caught up with they didn't mean for you to have military type weapons. Well, the only reason that they consider them military type weapons is now because of the AR-15 platform, the M16.
Yeah.
That they just have they've created a stigma around the look of that gun and creating an assault type weapon
Yeah.
and tying that platform of firearm to the military only.
And in reality, the only thing that the AR-15 and the M4 have in common are the way they look, because they do not fire the same way. Like the innards are not quite the same. And in order for me to buy an M4, it's pretty damn tough for me to buy something fully
even
automatic.
if they were identical and the only difference was the auto and 3-round burst, it doesn't matter because the Second Amendment does say just that. It doesn't segment what kind of weapons people have.
It doesn't verbalize saying, well, civilians can only have civilian type weapons. It doesn't. It doesn't.
And you can
that.
correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my Constitution sitting in front of me, but when it talks about a well-regulated militia, it doesn't state that it was a state-regulated militia, and so it also doesn't state that I shouldn't have the weapons to become a well-regulated militia when needed.
Well, if you got to go back and dig up some of the Federalist Papers, it really delves into why the Second Amendment is what it is. And if you guys have never heard of the Federalist Papers, your history teachers need to be slapped on the face, because dig them up. It's Hamilton and Jefferson. Several of the founding fathers decided they needed to write a few things down about the contemporary times, and it's pretty awesome. Anyways, if you go back and you look at what the regulated militia was, each male from 16 to, I can't remember what the expiring age was, they were required to have a musket. They were required to take care of that musket and care for it. It wasn't given to them by the state. They bought it on their own dime. And that's what constituted the militia, including blacks. So some people have that misconception to where, no, it was a state-sanctioned military group. No, it wasn't. It was a volunteer force because there was no federal military at that time. So
yeah, so I think
dig it up. Go look. Challenge me. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to the defense to that liberalist thought, I guess, where we're not supposed to have certain guns. Like, I understand we probably don't want people running around with grenade launchers and bazookas.
Well,
but at the same time, I don't know why you shouldn't be allowed to own it.
Here's my take on that. I think you should be able to buy them. This is gonna people can't. Well, I can't believe he's saying this. I think that you could buy them, but make them cost prohibitive. I mean, the way they are now, like, I can buy a grenade launcher. Honestly, grenade launchers are not that hard to pick up, but the grenades are very difficult to purchase. And I'm fine with that. I don't care. But if I want to go buy a grenade launcher and then decide I'm going to go buy some 40 mite grenades, I pay a $200 tax stamp per grenade plus the cost of the grenade, and it is very cost prohibitive.
God, can you imagine firing $1,000 grenade?
I think it would be awesome. I want to. I'll just say this. I've had an opportunity to buy an RPG, inert. Obviously I'm not going to go around buying an RPG. Well, not the launcher, but the actual inert rocket, which would have been awesome, but I didn't. And I'm
an inert rocket? Like, what would you do with that? Just put it on the wall?
A training rocket. Yeah, dude, it was awesome. I got a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to dig it up. But, obviously I'm not going to say, yeah, I bought it, because I didn't buy it. Besides, it was way more money than I wanted to pay for it. But I did have an opportunity to buy an actual grenade launcher, which I'm going to, because it's not a firearm. Like, I didn't have to do paperwork for it. I could have just bought it. And I'm sure people are like, oh my gosh, it's not serialized.
It's a tube with a firing pin.
Yeah.
That's all that a grenade launcher is. It's a tube with a firing pin. All the propellant, everything is captured inside of the rocket head itself.
Yeah, and it was old. This particular little grenade gun was, like I said, didn't have a serial number or anything on it. So I could have just paid him the cash and thrown a launcher in my safe, which would have
Yeah,
been
well, I'll
rad.
tell you what, none of my pistol braces have serial numbers either, but they
Yeah.
don't want me to have those.
Well, it's scary. It's the shoulder thing that goes up, right? It's kind of scary.
So so that's another thing. So current events, real quick, your
Yeah.
take on, let's start with the pistol brace. We've already talked about the pistol brace. Yeah, I mean we're 4 months later, and President Biden is coming after the pistol brace after the ATF kind of
You know,
pushed it under the rug.
you know what I think? I think the ATF showed their hand. I think this has been in the can for quite a while, and I think they accidentally tipped their cards before it was time with the last go round. I think it was in the works before that.
So does that give us a good foot to stand on as far as like uh, previous claims, previous action? Like,
Maybe
does
with
it even matter at this point?
with the what the Supreme Court constitutes right now, yeah, it gives us an opportunity, but that's a whole nother argument because he just said he was going to pack the court and add more Supreme Court justices.
I swore I listened to him say that he wasn't going to do that when he was running.
Oh yeah, he wasn't.
I heard that. Just putting that out there. I
You
heard him
also
say
realize
that he
that
was not going to pack the
he's
court.
got dementia, right? Like he doesn't remember what he said
I
yesterday.
don't realize that. I haven't seen
No signs.
anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen signs, but I haven't seen any doctors come out and say that he has dementia. Like,
Well, they're
that's
gonna wait.
until it's an official statement.
They're gonna wait. They're gonna use them
But
as much as they can.
okay, so pistol
Back to
braces.
pistol braces. Yeah, sorry.
They yeah, they showed their hand. What do you think will happen if it's an executive order? And I mean, we're talking within the next few days. It could be
Yeah,
if DOJ doesn't jump on
I
board.
think he's gonna sign it. But like bump stocks, I would not do anything about it yet.
Didn't bump stocks already get overturned?
Yes,
I talked about this on a live the other night.
and
We were talking about giving
think
up bump stocks, but it got overturned by the Supreme
yeah,
Court.
Supreme Court said that was unlawful. So think about this. So how many
And that
people
was a
just
novelty.
yeah,
Like,
it was
bump
an
stocks were a
accessory.
novelty. It was an accessory. It was a novelty. None of us who are serious gun owners even
Yeah,
owned a bump stock.
yeah,
They only sold as many as they did because they were getting banned.
yep.
And I, like I said, I've been on a couple of lives on Instagram the last couple of weeks, and I've been hanging out with Rob and Justin from Laserblade Engraving and Boise Black Rifle, and we talked about not one more inch. Like, these guys are serious gun advocates. Rob has been in multiple lawsuits with the federal government on different things in California, and him and all of us have agreed, like, not one more inch. They took bump stocks. We let them have it. We gave it up. We let President Trump roll those dice for us. And at this point, people aren't willing to give another inch if you're a
Yeah.
true Second Amendment advocate.
Yeah, and I, you know, they used to do well. They still do that Sportsman's Expo over there in Boise, right? And
No, actually they do the Sportsman's, yeah.
so we had a booth there through the store once a while ago, and I got into this conversation about bump stocks, and I think there's this there's this persona like if you like guns, then you have to like bump stocks, right? And this guy I was talking to, I was like, dude, bump stocks are stupid, like because I think they are stupid. I don't want one.
They're
And
a novelty.
and
Like, I
this
can't say this enough. They are a novelty. They're fun for 15 seconds. They're not something that you would put on any firearm that you wanted to be
yeah,
reliable, because they're not.
they're hard to
They're
control.
not
Yeah.
reliable. And the idea that that guy in Vegas actually used a bump stock to kill anyone, I don't believe it.
Do you know what we should
I just
try?
don't.
We need to try this, and maybe it's already been done because bump stocks are no longer illegal. We need to find somebody with one. We need to put it on a bipod on that rifle, and we need to try and do some controlled fire from the prone.
Yeah, I think we should try that, because I don't believe that it's consistent. I mean, it would be so inconsistent that you would be frustrated with trying to operate the gun.
Yeah, and oh man, talk about conspiracy hole. And I know the audio is hard to tell, but to me that did not sound like a 308 AR-15 that was being fired. Personally, it didn't sound like it. I've been around a few autos in my day, and something just didn't quite sound right about it. But whatevs. Like, I don't
I
know.
mean, the whole situation is weird, but we
Yeah,
won't take this episode down conspiracy theory.
no,
Um,
but
but
as far
on
before
pistol braces, we're still on pistol braces. I have been told and I've read there's 40 million pistol braces
at
in the
least,
U.S.
yeah, at least.
I know the guys over at Factor. They make their little stiffy insert for the pistol brace for when you're so it doesn't collapse while you're transporting it and whatnot. They sell 500 of those a week.
Mhm.
Every time I go by there, every time you pull up their Instagram, they're shipping. They get orders of 500 and they're sold instantly as soon as they put them up. I mean, those things are selling insanely fast. So I would not hesitate to believe there's 40 million of those out there. There's no way that 40 million pistol brace owners comply with what's going on. And I've already been told by many gun owners they're not doing it. It's not happening.
Well, okay, let's turn back to the history dial. Go way back in the time machine. Why was the NFA created?
Well, you are gonna have to educate me. I mean, I have an idea, but I know you know
So the
exactly what
NFA, one of the reasons they created a tax on these kind of firearm suppressors and full autos was to get the gangsters on tax evasion because they couldn't get them on anything else.
So one thing that I will add to that is because I know this for fact, and I don't know a whole lot for fact, but I know that pistols were on the NFA
They
list,
were, but they realized that that
and
was way too
and
much.
because they didn't think it would get passed, they took pistols out, and what did they put in its place? I think I've said this before on the show.
Suppressors.
Suppressors,
Yeah,
because suppressors weren't so big, bad, deadly until they decided, well, we can't get handguns banned,
yeah.
so let's do suppressors.
Let's
And
put
that made suppressors the big, ugly, scary thing.
yeah. So now we know that the NFA was partially was for tax evasion purposes, right? To get people on tax evasion for not paying that $200 tax. So let's jump back now. So if they decide to pass that law, not only have they made 40 million of us gun owners felons, but we've also will be get dinged on tax evasion. Possibly. What do you think about that?
So another thing that I've heard is that the idea of executive orders turning that many people into felons with the stroke of a pen is
Very
unconstitutional.
unconstitutional. So now go back to Heller, and when we talk about DC versus Heller, you can't ban something that's in common use. There have been more AR-15 style rifles, modern sporting rifles, sold in the last 3 years. We went from somewhere around 17 million ARs around Trump's time to over 20 million now. So he sold 3 million ARs in the last 6 months. So I would say that's common use, personally. So he's already violating, or at least dancing on the ruling of DC versus Heller. This will damn sure get tested in the Supreme Court, and I think that's part of the motivation for him to increase the justices, because they can put whoever they want in there now. Not
So
no bueno.
so conspiracy side of Nick says, what point does that become tyranny?
um, I think we're pretty damn close. But here's my fear. So I think most gun owners don't want to break the law, and they're just going to be like,
Because if we break
whatever.
the law, then we can't be gun owners.
Right. And so they're
So
worried
it's
about it.
so we ride this fine line. I was explaining this to a customer at the shop the other day, that we ride this fine line as gun owners to where we we as conservative, we as Republicans, we like to call ourselves the silent majority, right? And the silent majority doesn't ever get what they want. The people who get what they want are the loud, progressive liberals, right? Because they shout from the rooftops racism, sexism, all of this shit. And you can get 1% of the population to completely change the way we live, right?
Yeah.
And then we want to say, well, we're the silent majority. Well, we are a majority, but
Yeah,
we need to
widely.
stand up and be loud because we're going to only lose what we want. And so whereas kind of getting at with that is that if we don't speak up, we'll lose our rights. Well,
Absolutely.
most gun owners and most Second Amendment advocates, we don't want to break the law because then we'll lose our rights to have guns, right?
Well, yeah, we don't want to upset the
And
apple cart.
and the last thing that we want to do is rock the boat. The last thing that I preach this on my Instagram personal and business page. The big gun manufacturers will not and have not stood up and made a stand in support of the Second Amendment. Hell, some of them donate to the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Like they will not stand up and have our backs. And shit, right now I don't even see a whole lot from the NRA.
No. Well,
I'm
that's because the NRA is embroiled in a whole another kettle of soup that they're gonna be MIA for a while.
But the problem with that is this is when we need them most.
Oh, absolutely. The timing is horrible.
So what has to happen, and this is what me and Rob were talking about on Friday. Yeah, it was Friday. Is that all of us little guys, no matter how small we are, we're gonna have to stand up and we're gonna have to use our voice and we're gonna have to be heard. And it's not about convincing Democrats or liberals or left leaning or in the middle. It's not about convincing them of anything whatsoever. It's 100% about convincing us conservative gun owners to stand up and be heard and do what it takes to stand up for rights before we have to go to the tyranny side, before we have to stand up and step in. We have to stand up and we have to hold the ground that we have, which
Yeah.
if that means not giving up bump stocks, polymer 80s, 80% lowers, pistol braces, all frivolous things, all things that are not even, they don't even attribute to gun violence.
A very small
God,
percentage.
God, you could probably count the amount of gun violence done with a so-called ghost gun on two hands
Yeah.
in the entire country. Like there's probably been less than 10 crimes committed with a so-called ghost gun that wasn't a ghost gun from say South America.
Nothing that we ran through Fast and Furious.
Yeah. It's not I mean there's probably a lot of ghost guns, so-called ghost guns that were manufactured on the black market.
Yeah, in the Philippines or somewhere,
But the things that were built off of a polymer 80, off of uh, a 1911 frame. I mean, I remember when I first got in the gun industry, 2012, and we were talking about building 1911s, right? We had 1911 builders classes before polymer 80s, before 80% lowers were a big deal, and you'd buy a 1911 frame and you'd build a constitutional firearm, right? I mean, that's it's that's a real thing, isn't it? Someone told me that once that we had the right to own one or two
it's guaranteed.
unserialized guns.
Yeah, the ATF said it's perfectly fine as long as you're not manufacturing and selling them, becoming
Yeah.
like an FFL manufacturer, you're fine. So it's
It's when
ridiculous.
it's when we decided, okay, well, we're gonna pump mass amounts of that into the country that they became to have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the people buying those kits and building their own guns, and now we're off pistol braces, we're more onto the so-called ghost gun executive order, right? So we've kind of transitioned into that. But the people building those guns, they're knowledgeable gun owners.
Yeah.
They're people like me and you. I actually bought my first polymer 80 frame last week.
I don't have one. I should have bought one.
I've never purchased one. I've never had an 80%. I've had a couple 80% lowers. They sat on my desk, but I've never built one. I've built a couple polymer 80s with friends. Like they've come over to my house and they did all the stuff for them. But I've never built one for myself. I've never actually physically built one. And so when all this happened, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna order one. So I ordered one from my buddy Justin at Laser Blade Engraving. But I made sure that I ordered it from California. I mean, if you're going to get a ghost gun, it should come from the ghost gun state, right?
Yeah.
So I ordered a polymer 80 from Sacramento, California, had it shipped to Idaho. So I can't wait for that
In a
to
matter
come.
of minutes, you can make that
Oh,
into a deadly weapon.
Oh yeah, but I got a shipping confirmation 7 minutes after I placed the order. I mean, that guy was on point with
It's
shipping, just so you guys know.
because he wants to dump them. He wants to get rid of them.
Yeah, well, he just ordered a bunch more. He posted on Instagram today. He had a bunch more coming in. So,
Nice.
and they were, I mean, it wasn't like it was cheap. It was $160,
Yeah.
which is the normal price, I guess. But I mean, it's not like I'm going out buying this lower that I can build into it. I mean, I'm going to be into a build of a gun more than I could go buy a
Yeah,
Glock at today's price.
that's what's funny is and it's not like they're pre-made. There's a reason why it's called an 80% lower. Is you still have to do 20% of the work.
And I'm telling you, I've watched two people make them. I posted a video of my buddy Drew. I'll be your Huckleberry on Instagram. We posted videos of him doing his. We went over to his house and did it, and it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't hard, but it wasn't simple.
Yeah.
And when we went to put it together and put the pins and stuff in, everything didn't line up right because I mean, I manufactured a lot of stuff and we didn't do it perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's depressing. I mean, I can see their logic. Oh, excuse me. This is not a boring subject. I'm just tired. Uh, yeah, I can see their logic and how they use the fear to create this problem, this paradox that they say is existing. But you're right. There's really a very limited amount of constitutional firearms, as you put them, that get used in crime because it's law-abiding citizens that are buying them for the most part. Now, is there some bad dudes getting a gun because it's easier for them? Yeah, maybe, sure, but
Yeah, but I
it
mean, it's probably harder for a bad dude to build a. I'm going to call them constitutional firearms. I can't handle this ghost gun thing. So it's probably harder for them to build a constitutional firearm than to go buy one illegally.
probably it's more money.
You got to source more parts.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
and
it's not a one-stop shop. Even with the build kits that they were selling, you still had to machine and manufacture the parts.
plus you got to find a slide, you got to find the barrel, you got to
Yeah.
it's not just throwing a gun together as fast as you can.
So
I
yeah,
don't know. It's frustrating. I really think that they will be the way of the dodo. I think they're going to get rid of those. So I think that being said, it might be a good idea to buy is just load up on parts, AR parts, Glock parts, whatever, because that might be
yeah,
a little
but
bit harder for you to get.
I think that that whole like I don't think people are going to give them up. Like I'll sit here and I'll say it. I don't think people are going to give up their
I hope not.
constitutional gun frames.
I hope not because they're legal. The ATF has said that we're okay. So, but you know how the ATF is with decision making.
Well, they changed their name. They're the AFT
AFT
now.
now. Yeah, I got to get me some hats and stuff made up.
Yeah, I'm too like literally 10 minutes after that speech, people already had apparel out that said AFT agent. So,
Yeah, they're faster than I am.
absolutely. So yeah, so kind of gone over that current events. What else is going on?
Well, let's see. I haven't seen any new guns come out, and I'm sure there's more coming out. Uh, man, I was talking to somebody at a local gun store, a manager, and I hope this isn't true, but he really feels that it'll be 5 years before ammo gets back to the availability that it was. And I don't know if that's true or not. The problem are the hoarders still, man. Those as soon as ammo comes up, they don't care what price it is. They're gonna buy a bunch of it and sell it online.
That's not. I don't know that that's true though,
You
because
don't
we
think
talked
so?
about this. Remember when the ammo came up a couple weeks ago at Independence at the range, and
Oh
people were
yeah,
crying about the price, right?
yeah,
So I saw it. I don't know if you noticed, they lowered their price to $6.99, which I think was a bad move on the store's part
yeah,
because I know what that ammo costs to
yeah.
get there.
That particular ammo was expensive because how they had to get it.
And so I also was talking with Rob over at Boise Black Rifle about an ammo deal that he brokered for his stores because he has 3 stores: Idaho, California, and Nevada, and he brought in 260,000 rounds. And lo and behold, what's the price per thousand? No limit, but what's the price? $8.25 a case. Like, It's not crazy because, and he even told me, he said I had to cut my margin almost in half
Yeah, that sucks.
to sell it at that.
Yeah, I really don't think the stores are out to gouge. There might be some, maybe cheaper than dirt is one exception. But maybe I should edit that out. I don't know. But for the most part, the small town stores, they're not trying to rape people out of their money, because we like customers.
Yeah. It's not that way, and people are getting what they wanted. No limit. You can
Yeah,
buy as much of it as you want.
yeah,
That's what the price is. And I like to compare it to gas prices. Like, I don't stop driving because gas becomes $6 a gallon. I just drive less.
yeah. You
I
know,
prioritize it.
kind of to backtrack a little bit, we were talking about the NRA and joining the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. How many gun owners do you think there are in the United States?
Oh god, there's got to be 40 million.
At least they say
Yeah, minimum.
one in three houses has firearms in it.
So okay, so call it 100 million.
Okay, even if we did 75 million, imagine if they all donated $1 to a gun rights organization. $1. Do you think that 75 million could go somewhere? Yeah, I do.
But
But
I think what's happened with that whole I think people have gotten a bad taste for donating money because they've watched where their money goes with places like the NRA.
yeah,
And yet the NRA has done a lot of great things for the gun community and the fight.
and
But they've also done
they're still a good name. Like well, I shouldn't say
they
good name. There's still some things that they're doing that are good.
they've also done some really shitty things with the
Yeah,
money that we've given them.
yeah. They kind of took a dump on our membership funds. It pisses me
So,
off.
but that's when I tell people, I'm like, if you want to get involved with something, I mean, there's a lot of good organizations out there. If you're in Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, I know where that money goes. I know what it's used for.
The
I
Firearms
see
Coalition.
I see Greg on Facebook Live, like streaming the things that that money's being used for.
Yeah,
Like he's helping to draft legislation. They're engaging in lawsuits with that money. Like, I really like to say, like, we have to do something on a national level, but if you're gonna donate a little money, do everything you can to do it on a local level as
yeah,
well.
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Even in Idaho, I'm sure there's. I don't know how many people live in Idaho. 11 million, 12 million. I guess I should look that up.
2 million.
2 million. Is that
It's
it?
like yeah, it's only 2.5 at its
Most
highest.
of those live in Boise.
Yeah, there's like 260,000 people in
So okay,
Boise.
so let's just
The
say,
valley, not Boise itself, but the Treasure
yeah.
Valley.
So let's just say half of those people are gun owners in Idaho. So if they donated $5 to the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, or whatever local gun rights group that they espouse to, that money could go way far in the state, a
Oh,
long
100%.
long ways. So
If
why?
everybody that went to the gun show over the weekend here donated $5 at the door to the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, that'd be twenty, thirty
Huge.
thousand dollars.
It'd be huge. So why don't
Yeah,
we do it? That's
that's a very good question.
what's holding us back from donating.
What's stopping you from going with one less cup of coffee this month?
Or a rock star and a burrito or something,
Yeah.
it's, and I know times are tight, and
Times are tight, but $5 you can go get that out of your change jar in the
yeah,
car.
that's true.
Like remember, when we do fill the boot when I was on the fire department, people would dump their change from their car into the boot,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And they would look at me like they felt guilty, and I'm like, dude, I'll take every penny we can get, because you know how much money we could get in one day out in Cuna. We could raise $10,000 in a weekend from people's change
Hmm.
or donating $1.
Maybe that's something we need to work on, uh because I know there's a large um pro 2A company here in Idaho Falls that's been trying to get something moving, and I need to talk to them again because they were on
I also
fire.
I also know that I was a part of a raffle for an officer that got killed in California with those guys I mentioned before,
Yeah,
Sacramento Black Rifle and Laser Blade Engraving. We raised $30,000 in a month
yeah.
for that family.
Maybe we need to maybe we need to push something. I mean, we can't use a GoFundMe because they'll shut us down. But maybe we do a fill the ammo can or something. I wonder.
Yeah,
I wonder what would happen if we did that at a street corner.
that would be interesting, actually.
That could be some.
That
That could be
that
some
would
good
be
radio.
Yeah, that would be interesting, not only for the show, but maybe for some video of like the reactions that you get from people.
Hmm.
Like
I,
donate to the Second Amendment cause.
yeah, maybe that's something we should think about.
Maybe in order to get Greg on the show and to answer our messages,
We have to
we have
raise
to
30
we
grand
have
for him.
to yeah, we have to raise $10,000-$15,000.
That would get his attention. Greg, if you're listening, we love you. We're not trying to rag on you. We just don't know why
We
you don't
just
want to come on the show.
we just want you on the show. We just want you to come and share your knowledge so that we can help spread the word of Idaho's Second Amendment Alliance
Yeah,
to our listeners.
and maybe that's a quest that we do with the show is set up some kind of a donation program. And not
Yeah.
maybe not necessarily a Second Amendment Alliance. Maybe that's how you guys have a hard time with them for some reason. Maybe it's just something that we can donate to uh, a few different Pro
Yeah,
2A.
100%. Like I was telling you before we came on, like I'm getting heavily involved with Turning Point USA and the Idaho chapters of that. We raised several $1,000s at the last event that we did at the Warhawk Museum. Any of you guys that follow me on social media saw my post with Brandon Tatum. He's going to be back here in September for an event that we're putting on for Turning Point USA. We're going to do a range day for the students. So that and all the money raised from that all goes right back into the local chapter. So we've got a bunch of raffles that are going to go on for that. All of the ticket sales, all of the proceeds go straight back into the Boise chapter of Turning Point USA.
Yeah, which is a worthy organization as well. It does wonders to the future leaders of this
Oh,
country.
absolutely. It's amazing to listen to the students talk about the liberal politics that go on in our schools. And I'm telling you, I had kids from high school, 5 different high schools across the valley, show up to the event. I had students from NNU, which that is the most woke Christian school I've ever heard of when I started
And
listening
it,
to
what's in
the
you?
policies there. Northwest Nazarene
Oh,
University.
I should have probably known that.
Yeah. Um, their basketball team made it into the playoffs for the March Madness or some
Wow.
shit. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But and then BSU, out of we had 25 students from there that are part of that chapter. Out of the entire campus, we had one professor show up.
Wow, doesn't surprise me. BSU's kind of getting up there as the wokeness. And honestly, for you, my LDS peeps out there, BYU and BYU Idaho, some of the worst schools out there for this state of for that thought process. It's getting bad. What's
So
going
yeah,
on?
getting out like we said at the beginning, not necessarily worrying about the people who are against you in your beliefs, but getting the people who agree with us to stand up and say how they feel is going to be more important than trying to turn people.
Yeah, and you got to start building off common agreements, right? Common beliefs. Because if you just go out and start throwing, well, I'm not giving up my gun, come and take it. That's probably going to turn some of those people off. But if you come out with building off some of the common beliefs and understandings that you have about any constitutional right, because honestly, if the Second Amendment drops, what's going to stop them from the First or all the way into the Fourth? What they're going to start coming in and taking things out of your house, like
Well,
it.
they already said
Yeah,
the
red.
president already asked the Supreme Court to consider being able to go into people's homes and take their firearms without a warrant.
Well, and then the red flag law thing.
Oh God, man,
That is
I didn't even understand red flag laws until this came up, and I started looking into it. And man, is that scary!
yeah.
I was actually down at the hot tub of my apartment complex after reading about it, talking to some people, and oddly, everybody knows what I do. Like everywhere I go, that they meet me, they seem to have heard of my company. So they're asking, and I'm saying, well, I just was learning about red flag laws, and they're like, oh, what's that? And I start explaining. I'm like, well, you know, I've seen you down here barbecuing and drinking and I saw you yell at your son for something, and I don't think that you should have a gun in your home. You might hurt someone,
Yeah.
and I can turn you in for that, and they can come take your guns. They can come make you go do a psychological exam. And they go, no, no way. And I said, that's exactly what a red flag law is. Anybody can come, your family, your friends, your coworkers, if they feel that you could be a
Even
danger to
even
society.
even a judge that doesn't even know you, if the cops say, "Hey, this guy, we've noticed some weird posts on his Facebook profile. We're kind of worried that
God,
he's going to do something."
can you imagine all of the shit that I post on Facebook and Instagram? Like just a random officer that didn't like what I had to say just gets a warrant and all of a sudden show up at my apartment.
Yeah, and you're helpless. You have no control over it. Now let's think about this in the fact, or in the not the fact, but in the view of the First Amendment. What if somebody says, "You know what, this guy, that Nick, he posts some stupid things on his feeds. I think he needs to, we're going to take away his ability to use any of his online platforms. He can only make phone calls from now on." Because that's pretty much the
So
exact same thing.
basically I become President Trump.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You've been evicted from every social media thing you can do, and we'll probably have to restrict your emails too.
Oh man.
I mean, sure, that sounds ridiculous, but it's pretty much the same thing.
But it's happened. Like it's that's already happened. Like that's President Trump. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe not his emails, but like that's exactly what they said to him. Well, we refuse service to you.
yeah. Well, that's okay. He's gonna come up with the freedom, whatever his social media. We'll see.
They'll probably shut down the internet just to
Yeah,
stop it.
yeah. So, am I a Trump fan? Sure, a little bit, but like he did some things that we despise. We talked about the bump stock
So
thing, but
so you're telling me that if I get Rob Pincus to come on this show, that you guys might agree on your disagreement with Donald Trump as president?
Rob Pincus and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. I don't really care for him at all, actually. But
So I should get him on the show.
you could. I tried to catch up with him at Shop Show, dude. That guy's too cool for school. He doesn't talk to anybody if he doesn't want to.
I talked to him a couple times last year when we were there. I brought him here a few times to do classes though. So
Yeah, I've heard some very negative comments about his classes.
I've heard negative stuff too, but I've only ever had good interactions with him, and I don't follow a whole lot of his stuff on social media. I do follow some of his 3D printed gun stuff that he's been doing lately, but I did read some pretty controversial responses from him about how President Trump was a fake gun advocate.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's 100% wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you guys. I don't think that he was in any way helping gun rights before he became the president,
No,
or did he care?
he was a big city Republican, right?
Yeah, I think it's more that out of sight, out of mind, didn't care, wasn't part of his business dealings, wasn't part of his life, didn't care.
And I don't know about Junior. I mean, he was supposedly part of the suppressor coalition, whatever, to try and get the Hearing Protection Act through. And I don't know if that was just all show or not. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I've been to some events that he was at, and I mean, he seems like a pretty genuine, like hunter, fisher. I mean, he's been shooting with some of my friends.
Yeah.
So
Do I think he was a bad president, though? No, I think he was an awesome president. It's, overall, I think he was good for the country. He just needed some education on the firearms front, some
well,
re-education.
I'm not 100% certain that we'll ever get to see him try and rectify
No,
that,
no,
but
he'll never be president again. I don't think he wants to, anyways.
I don't necessarily think he wants to be president again either. I think that that's just pipe dreams for those of us that wanted him to be the president again, but I think that whoever we have next will be a million times better than what we have.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping. As long as the elections are good, we're good.
I
I
mean, as long as we're allowed to still have elections.
I think there are some very awesome people about to take some state seats back, though. I think that's going to be
I did
tremendous.
I did see that The Rock was throwing his hat in the ring.
I can't wait not to vote for him.
Yeah, me too.
No, I noticed that Steve Reichardt's going to be running for Congress. Is that no? Not Steve. Is it Steve Reichardt? Who's the sniper? It's Reichardt. Is it Steve Reichardt?
It's a snipe. I think so.
He had the record long distance kill for a long time. Actually, a lot of veterans hate him with a passion. They think he's a liar, which he might be. I don't know. I think it's Steve Reichardt. Let me look.
All right, so we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, Steve Reichardt. I was right. Boom.
You usually are. So
No, I'm not.
tell me, with the few minutes that we have left, the direction that you want to see us go with the show now that there's the two of us.
So there could be. Well, maybe I won't share that yet. I think there's going to be a lot of lateral options coming up for the show. I think we're going to be able to do. Not that Mark was holding us back by any means, because
not at all.
Mark was
in fact,
the
I feel
glue.
Like we're starting over. I feel like we're starting over without him.
Mark was the glue for the show. I'm not kidding. He kept us out of the weeds.
You should hear me and Steve try to figure out, well, how are we going to do post-production? Who's going to upload this? How do you upload this? Can you call Mark? Did you text Mark?
Mark can do it in like 10 seconds, and we're going to take a week to get it done. Anyway, I really want to see us to reach out a little bit outside of our comfort zones. I really want to get to BSU and do some interviews with the students. We've wanted to do that from the inception of the show. Honestly, I think we need to delve a little bit more in pushing gun rights a little bit deeper. I really like the idea of doing some kind of a fundraiser for local gun rights groups. I don't know. I really want to do some videos and stuff too. I think we can get into that pretty easy though.
So for me personally, I would really like to see us get on a regular schedule with getting people on the show.
Yeah.
I know both of us have had a list for a while of people we'd like to get on the show. And I would also like to get some feedback from the listeners to find out who and what they would like to hear on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with you. There's definitely going to be some Second Amendment advocate stuff going on here. I'd love to do some sort of fundraising, team up with some sort of a group that we can do that fundraising for.
Yeah.
Again, I'd love to get Steve Pruitt on here, talk about options in Idaho.
Greg Pruitt,
sorry. You have me confused. The other guy you're talking about, you're Steve. That's what it is. You're Steve.
Look at this face, man. Look at it. It's me.
And I want to do some video. We're actually using a different software today than we normally do that records the video. So we might start throwing up some clips as we're talking about this, so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I definitely want to start throwing some excerpts up on Instagram and YouTube to try and grow the audience. I know that there's a lot of people out there that need to hear our message. So, yes. And I would love to become a platform where people can come onto our show and share their message, and us be able to get it out there to more people for them. So
awesome. Yeah, when we created this show, we wanted to create or inspire stewards of the Second Amendment. We've used that term a lot, to be good stewards of the Second Amendment. And honestly, I would love to get regular Joes on the show and talk with them, because sometimes you find out things about people that it's amazing.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I've talked to a few people while I've been out. Like I meet people and they find out what I do and we get to talk. And I'm like, dude, I'd love to have you on our podcast. And like, oh, I'm nobody. Like, that's not like that. You don't want me on your show. I'm like, no, man, that conversation that we just had, like, I want to have that again to share with other people.
Yeah.
Because that's what gets, I guess, normal people engaged in what we're doing, is when they realize, like, even me and Steve, we're not any different than anyone else. We're just more
I'm different,
involved.
but usually it's in a negative connotation.
I'll tell you what, there's other people that are probably just like you. They think they're different. we just are more involved in the things that people think are special.
Yeah.
But any of us can be involved in that. Like, I was no one special before I started this journey. Like, I knew nothing about concealed carry. I knew nothing about shooting sports. I knew very little about the Second Amendment. And I mean, I'm still learning every single day, but people come to us now for information. And I would like to get more people on the show that not only build my knowledge base and my education, but puts that on record to share with everyone else.
And I think you touched on something that's really important, and maybe I've tried to verbalize this before, is, well, we talked about there are millions of gun owners in the United States, tens of hundreds of millions of gun owners. But a lot of us don't want to share that, and that's the problem. I mean, look how the left has normalized so many deplorable and disgusting things because they share their appetites or desires or whatever. So why can't we share our beliefs and appetites and desires about stuff that I believe is constitutionally founded? Like, it's sound. So why are we so scared to say, yeah, I'm a gun owner and I shoot USPSA, and you know why is that so hard? Like, I want to give that platform to other people,
So
regular Joes.
maybe that should be one of the segments of the show, is where we bring on people that might not think that they have a voice to share and share their voice of what they do. I mean, there's so many people that every day someone comes into the shop and talks to me about their gun owner experience. What I really would like to hear about too, and get some people on to talk about, is when people come into my shop, they're scared to tell me that they moved to Idaho from California.
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, I'll be like, "Oh, where'd you move here from?" Because I can tell they just moved here. They're talking about their new house, this and that, and I'm like, "Oh, where'd you move here from?" And they're like, get quiet, and they get like turned off, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm assuming you came here from California. Like, that's great. Like, I'm glad to have you. Like, if you're standing in my building, you're my type of person. Like,
Yeah.
you're who I want to move here."
Yeah, we're
And
all family.
if anybody from any other state, especially California, New York, is listening, move to Idaho. If you're listening to this show, move to Idaho. I will welcome you with open arms. Like, you're the type of people that I want to move here, because I want to fill all of the voided space that we still have left here, which isn't a lot. So do it quick, with people who are like-minded, who want and share the values that we have as Idahoans,
Yeah.
and don't want to change it to be something that it's not.
Well, there's a reason why those people are moving here, is because they like Idaho values. They like what we stand for. They like being able to hunt and fish and not be bombarded with crazy laws and whatever. And those are
But at the same time, I still tell people, if we want to keep it that way, we got to stop being quiet about it. We
yeah.
got to
Oh
stand
yeah.
up. We got to support it. And I think that I've said this 1,000 times. People who move here from blue states know exactly what I'm talking about, because they lived it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like moving to America from a socialist communist country. When you come here and you recognize socialism and communist things, you don't want it to happen, so you recognize it early and you stand against it.
Yeah. Speak
When you
out.
move when you move to Idaho from California, and you start to recognize that the Boise mayor is the next Gavin Newsom, you're like, I don't want to do any dealings with Boise. I don't want any part of that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't either. And if you live in Boise, you should be out petitioning and voting and doing. It's the people from California who are doing that.
Yeah. Because they're vocal.
Yeah, because they know what they're coming from. And that's like when I talked to Rob from Boise Black Rifle, his store in Sacramento, he's like, dude, I've been through this before. Like, it blows my mind the amount of people that stand at my counter and, oh, that'll never happen here. Oh, I was born in Idaho, and oh, California is ruining our state. Dude, he's like, you've got to stand up. You've got to stand up for those things, because they're going to go away. That California used to have gun rights. Now they don't.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't do it here, and I think that it's the people who come from those states that actually push us to being one of the top 5 Second Amendment advocate states in the country.
Yeah.
One of the states that we implement constitutional carry, and now, what, 25 states have now implemented constitutional carry.
With more to come.
Every week I hear of a new state who is implementing permitless carry.
Yeah.
Why is that?
There's a reason. There's a reason why the states are seeing the necessity for that. And
So
it's important, like you say, those voices need to be heard. We need to let people know that it's normal to own a firearm, and it's not normal to use that firearm to murder people. Like that is not what happens.
I mean, you look at the numbers, and it talks about like in the murders that are committed, the gun violence or the what was it, mass shootings or gun violent crimes was like 300 that use an AR-15 a year,
Yeah.
but 3 million lives are saved with that same
Yeah.
gun. Like
Absolutely.
if you just look at the numbers, how can you even fathom trying to ban that
Yeah,
weapon?
statistically insignificant.
But if when you listen to these people talk, you would think it was 3 million to 1 people are killed with that firearm.
Well, and that's what foreigners think too, that America is just a killing ground. Like you step outside and the kids have to run from the school to the car so they don't get mowed down by some dude with a Ma Deuce sitting in the parking lot. Like it's ridiculous.
Well, side note, rabbit hole. My son was at Wahoo's yesterday and a kid got stabbed by another kid at Wahoo's. They evacuated the building.
Was it a high capacity stabbing?
I don't know. They haven't released any details, but it was a 17-year-old's.
From
Oh, excuse
from
me.
Canyon County, huh? I saw that on the Meridian
Yeah,
PD.
and they tried to make something about how the influence of outsiders moving to Canyon County. I'm like, well, having an Ada County, first of all, and second,
It's just
I mean,
some punk thug.
it's a tragedy that a kid got stabbed by another kid, but it is so rare. Like, I mean, we need to nip it in the butt, but let's not make this into something that it's not.
Yeah. A rash of stabbings, one this year. It's
Yeah,
100% increase.
I was like, stabbings are up 1,000% this year. But if you go across the border to Ontario, I talked about this on the live I did last week. They had 7 stabbings last year at one dispensary in Ontario.
Well, that can't happen. Marijuana makes you peaceful.
Yeah, I know. And that $100 million in extra tax revenue has made that place a gorgeous city. I don't know if you've been across the border lately, but it's kind of a shithole.
No, last time I was at the Oregon border, I turned around, and that's not even joking. I drove to the border. I just like, man, I got my concealed. I'm not gonna deal with this. I just turned around and drove back.
You didn't want to empty your magazine and put your slide and your bullets in the trunk and your
Yeah,
frame in the glove
so I
box.
just turned around at the state line and drove back.
Yeah, that's how I feel all the time when I have to go
I'm
through
not
there.
even joking. That is 100% real.
I usually pull over right there at the rest area when I have to like travel through Oregon so that I can like disassemble my concealed carry weapon.
Yeah, I just refuse to be
So
a
dumb.
victim.
I should get my permit for there, but I don't like to jump through the hoops.
Yeah, there shouldn't have to be one. My driver's license works in all 50 states. Whatever.
Well, we shouldn't need one because if you need a driver's license to carry a gun, I mean, that's like needing a driver's license to vote.
Well, we can't show ID to vote though.
I mean, I think it's kind of, I don't want to say the R word, but to require a license to carry a firearm, some people can't get to the DMV to get a
Well, and
license.
some people are too stupid to get on the internet and understand how IDs work anyways, so
And that's me. Like I'm too dumb to figure out how to get an Oregon concealed carry license, so I don't have one, so I can't carry when
yeah.
I'm there. So I'm being like, what is that word?
Repressed?
Repressed. That's it. That's how I feel. So all right, well, we're past the hour mark, so let's close it out. I think we got some pretty good
And I don't think we even
stuff
need to
for going
edit
forward.
anything. It's so awesome.
Yeah, this will probably be a pretty rough cut for my first attempt, just so you know. I'm going to have this uploaded by tomorrow morning and it's probably going to it is 8:30 and it will probably take me till 8:30 in the morning to get this figured
I
out.
doubt it. You're smarter
So,
than me. It's all good.
thank you guys for bearing with us in this first episode without Mark.
The rebirth. The,
Yeah,
I think, what did I had it written down as Markless episode 1 or something like that.
I think that I was going to name this episode when I upload it the first episode of Range Minded 2.0
Oh,
without Mark Long.
RIP. He didn't die.
Yeah.
He didn't die. Don't worry.
We'll have to talk when we get emails. We'll have to figure that out. By the way, you're going to have to figure out how to check those emails.
Oh, I'll figure it out.
All right, guys.
So yeah,
I'm gonna jump off here and get this
speaking
edited.
speaking of emails, you can find us at rangeminded at what is it? Rangeminded at podcast. Oh, that's what
iishooting.com.
rangeminded at iishooting.com. You can find Nick where on social media, Nick.
You can find me at Nicholas Hoffer on Instagram or at Hoftac_industries on Instagram or Hoftac.com. There's a contact page there. If you can't find us on the Range Minded page, you can email me there.
And then you can find me on Impractical Tactical on Instagram. Or you can email me at impracticaltactical17@gmail.com.
As well as the Range Minded podcast on social media.
On Insta, yeah, and Facebook. That's right. So thanks, guys. Peace out. Be patient with us. Take someone shooting.
All right. Stay safe, guys.
See ya.